What do I expect of them? And what are the goals that are set
Yeah.
for everyone? Everyone has to have expectations and goals to really hold them accountable too. So if you don't have those things defined, then it's really hard to hold
For sure.
accountability. We really focused on making sure every level, every position had those KPIs or goals. And then it's really easy at that point.
Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Escape the CEO Doom Loop, where we talk with real-world CEOs about the challenges of building a great business without losing your vision, your energy, or your sanity. I'm Glen Dall. I'm a metronomics coach based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm joined by my co-host and fellow business coach, John Ninkovich, who is in the Metro Detroit area. Today, we're joined by Phil Chabot, who's CEO of RSC Mechanical, who's a leader in the maintenance of refrigeration, heating, and cooling systems. So Phil's really just taken over CEO seat here in the past couple of years. So this is going to be an interesting conversation for Phil to see how he's been acclimating and some of the lessons he's learned so far. But Phil, I'd actually love to give you a few minutes to tell us a bit about yourself and your background and what RSC Mechanical does.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for having me on and going through this process. Hopefully you'll learn something from me and I'll learn something from you. So RSC is a full service refrigeration and HVAC contractor across 19 states, mostly east of the Mississippi, but we also do Colorado and California. We mostly service supermarkets and refrigerated warehouses. Our mid-level customers are like pharmacies, high-end gas stations, a lot of coffee establishments. And we also have an electrical division that we run out of Michigan and Northern Ohio. That's kind of a different sect of work that we do. My grandfather started it in 1988 in the Metro Detroit area. We were servicing Farmer Jack. We serviced all of those in the Metro Detroit area.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2005, my dad, the second generation, and his siblings bought the company from my grandparents. And then maybe 2008, 9 is when I took over as CFO. And then one of my other uncles had taken over as the CEO. So he was CEO for a number of years, and then it came to me.
Phil was invited by a friend, Dave Sokol, who works with a bunch of my different clients, actually, with delivering employee benefits programs to them. So the roundtable was, 15 CEOs from a variety of different industries, and really the subject that create an accountable workforce. And so I was happy to meet Phil that day and learn a little bit about his organization. What was really cool is that you get CEOs in that format and they're kind of sharing things that they're thinking about or struggling with, or what are the things they need to do to move my business forward. So those roundtables have been great. I know you've been doing those in Minneapolis also. So they've been a great format. I think sharing, learning, and getting to know people that we didn't know through that process. So yeah, I've got to know Phil a little bit through that over the last 6 or 7 months.
So Phil, we have a signature question we always start with, but I'm going to hold off on that a little bit because I'd just love to hear a little bit more about how long have you been CEO of RSC Mechanical?
I took over as CEO June of 2024. So a year and a half about.
Yeah. Okay. So how did that change come about? You gave us a little bit in the intro, but I'd just love to dig down deeper into that of your ascension into that seat.
My Uncle Joe was the CEO prior, and then prior to that was Tony Chabot, which is one of my other uncles. And Joe just kind of got to the point where he could have kept going. He wasn't like done with the job, but he felt that he had accomplished a lot of what he set out to do when he became the CEO and the growth that he wanted to foster during that time. And he just said, I think it's time. I think we're at a good spot. I don't want it to be an emergency where I'm burned out. I think it's a good place to transition.
So when you think about kind of your evolution into that seat, is this something that you've been thinking about? You were in the CFO role previously. So if you think about 10 or 15 years ago, were you thinking, hey, one day I'd love to be the CEO of our family company, or what'd that look like for you?
So I definitely wouldn't say I was begging for it. I believe I knew it would happen at some point. It's a lot of pressure, right? If you're signing up for a big position, right? We have around 500 people in our company right now. that runs through my head all the time, right? We're supporting 500 families across the United States. Every decision that we make is affecting the livelihood of those individuals. So I already felt the weight of that as the CFO, but I knew I would feel more of the weight of that as the CEO. So when we were kind of going through the process, we have other brothers and other family members in the company, and everyone was kind of talking about me, and they were like, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Want and will are probably two different things.
Okay.
Do I want to do it? No. I would like to continue on. Will I do it? And do I think I can do a good job? Yes, I think I can." So it wasn't like that was my major aspiration in the company. Kind of an approach of a lot of us in our family is we'll fill any position that's needed regardless of where it is in the company. We don't need to be the top dog. We might not be the right fit at some point. Someone in the family may not be the right fit for the CEO position, and we'll have to go do something else if that's where the company evolves to. I think a good example of that is our prior CEO stepped down a couple levels and is now the director of our fleet, which is a large portion of it's a major expense in our company. And he went from CEO to director and is running our whole fleet and safety division now. So whatever, and that was a major thing that we needed in RSC at the time, and he filled that role. So it's not like we have to be those C-level positions. Are we in a lot of them? Yes, but we don't have to be. We'll slot in wherever we need to. We're pretty versatile.
It's a really unique culture.
Can you build out a little bit the want versus will thing? I think that's really interesting. So it's funny because I grew up in family-owned business, and I get the essence of what you're saying. I live that too. But when you talk about the want versus will, what were some of the reasons that you maybe didn't want to be CEO of the family business?
One of the major reasons, obviously, it's a time commitment. I have 3 little kids, a 9, 7, and 4-year-old. So I knew that there would be additional time spent, more travel, and that was a major contributor to that decision, right? I don't know if anyone's ever really perfectly ready for what's going to happen as a CEO, even though we did have time to prepare. It didn't matter if I took it now or later. I think regardless if I took it now and someone else stepped into that role, I think they would have called on me at a different point after that person took it. So it's kind of that I didn't need it. It wasn't something I was like begging for, like I said earlier.
Yeah. So you said earlier, but you said that you were being talked about as the person. It sounded like many of the other family members or leadership, which sounds almost one and the same. What were those qualities, or why were they talking about as the person to run the company for the family?
Well, obviously I have the financial background as CFO prior and went to college for accounting at Walsh in Michigan. So I think I had a lot of the administrative and probably executive qualities as far as all the numbers and how to run the business. And that's a big part. Obviously, driving performance of the business is understanding all those numbers and how to make them go up and down. All the qualities that they saw in me, it was just kind of like, yeah, it's going to be Phil. Even my brother, who's older than me, my Uncle Joe, CEO, had come in and started talking with us initially. He was like, which one is it going to be? And my brother's like, oh, it's Phil. He's like, it's kind of the similar attitude.
He didn't want it either.
He's like, I don't want it. He's like, if you guys tell me I'm going to do it, I think I'll do a great job too. I think we were taking the same kind of approach is when we're called up, we'll take the reins. It doesn't have to be us.
What was it as you're going through the process that made you feel like, okay, I can go do this? There's great weight to this, right? And the reality is, you talked about earlier, like you got 500 families, and then you got your family, right? You got your family that's a part of this. And so it's weighty. I've been through this. So at what point did you feel like you were ready? Or do you feel like you're ready now? What's that look like for you?
It definitely took a minute. I would say within the first year, I felt more comfortable. But thinking about the name of the podcast, that the doom loop, I definitely think I hit that after that point, though. I think I realized it. I was probably in the loop, but the actual realization, I think, came after that, where I did feel like I was settled into the position felt like things were starting to run. I was understanding everything, shedding all my prior responsibilities, even training some people to do some of the things that I had done previously and getting all that stuff off of me. Being in the business for 20 years, you collect a lot of different things that probably you shouldn't have been doing at the position that we were in. So that did take a minute to kind of get off of all that stuff that I had been doing for, since I was 15 years old. So
that is the part of the doom loop that the symptomatic as CEOs, and we've all been there, is the idea of what truly is the role as a CEO. Because for those of us who ascended to the CEO seat, we got there by being really great leaders, but also really good at what we did. And in my case, it was sales and marketing. So I found myself, when I got in the doom loop, I would dive back into sales. I'll go on this big client call, or let me work on this pitch.
I definitely know what you're talking about. I managed a lot of the accounting and administrative departments in our building, billing, accounting, parts. Those were all under me. So in those moments where you felt maybe chaotic and things weren't going your way, you go back to what's easy, right? Or what you're really good at, what you feel is easy. You slide back into there. I can fix this part of it. And it's like, but you're not focusing on every part of it as this, you got to be focused on every part of it as the CEO. So that's definitely, I had to stop myself from doing that a lot more.
Yeah. Glenn, you want to ask the doom loop question? Is it appropriate to ask right now, you think?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The thing we found, Phil, is when we did these interviews, we didn't go into this doing the interviews to say, oh, we think there's this doom loop and let's find out about it. We actually went into these interviews to say, well, hey, we want to be really good business coaches. And so what are the issues that CEOs are grappling with? And we just started doing these 20-minute interviews with CEOs. We had one of our coach colleagues in India. So it was truly a global survey. It was really interesting because CEOs and owners would talk about, well, it's this issue or that issue. But we really found when we peeled it back, it was everything pointed back to the CEO themselves. And then when we started doing the data, it started coming back to like, wow, it's really they'll blame it's a loss of revenue, but then really it comes back to, well, I don't really have the greatest sales leader. And then it came back to, well, maybe I don't have great leadership. I'm doing too much. I'm wearing too many hats. I'm doing things. And what I'm really afraid of is that if the business fails, then it's going to be me. That means I'm a failure. And it's just this whole, it is the doom loop of the more nervous the head of the company gets, the more and John and I ski together. And we have this thing, it's like when you're skiing I don't know if you ski, Phil. Do you ski?
I did.
Okay.
Did years ago.
So the concept of like, if you come out on a slope that's like, oh, this is like steeper than I thought it was going to be. And the way we should handle it is you should lean into it, right? Use your weight on your skis. But what we do is we tend to start leaning back on our skis. And like, have you found yourself in the CEO doom loop? And was there a particular moment that you kind of realized this was happening in the business or in your head?
So it was probably around June. We were starting to get busy. Our busy time is probably from May to August. Wherever it's hot we're going to get a lot of work. So, we're starting to get busy. Things were starting to roll. I just felt like things weren't going the way I wanted. They wasn't how I envisioned them going. Kind of got in that loop or that spiral. You're just explaining, like blaming all yourself. What am I doing wrong? Just getting into my head about it. And then I was just kind of like, I need to write all this. I need to write all the problems down. I don't have a plan. There was lack of processes, lack of accountability. We didn't have a plan. And I'm like, I need to write it down and start making plans and making sure I have the right people to execute those plans, and just really started to line it all out and start knocking stuff off the board, and really dove into processes and made sure we all had that stuff written down, made sure we were holding accountability to the plans that we already had in place, and really just leaned into what we really needed to do to get out of those problems that we were feeling. We were feeling all these things, but we were all just kind of, what do we do about them? And it was like, well, we need to write them down, right? Define what the actual problem is. Like the saying, it's like, problem defined is half solved or something like that. So that's what we did, and just started really diving in and figuring out where our major issues were and what we were going to do to make them better. That helped get us out of that loop. And I'm not saying I don't go into that loop periodically. You just got to lean, like you said, lean back into the slope and say, what do we need to do? What's the plan? Stick to the plan. A plan is better than no plan.
That's awesome. So as you look at, like you mentioned accountability, like 2 or 3 times in the middle of that kind of where you're at in the doom loop. And I ran into this a lot in my family businesses and run into this a lot with the businesses that I coach that are family businesses. So how have you as a CEO been able to create a culture of accountability with family members? And you mentioned like your uncle used to be the CEO, my brother, who's a peer to you, right? And I'm sure there's other families in the business. That's tough to do that. So how do you do that as a CEO, create an accountable organization where predominantly have a lot of your family that's in the business and key roles?
So I think it comes down to a lot of what my expectation is. What do I expect of them? And what are the goals that are set for everyone? And that goes from me, from the board or the owners telling me what they are expecting out of RSC Mechanical, all the way down to the entry-level employee. What are everyone's expectations? Everyone has to have expectations and goals to really hold them accountable too. So if you don't have those things defined for them to even point to their North Star, then it's really hard to hold accountability at that point. So we really focused on making sure every level, every position had those major KPIs or goals that they needed to point to. And then it's really easy at that point. The other thing we hold accountability to a lot, which we didn't have until the past year, was we didn't even have a mission, vision, and core value statements lined out.
Yeah.
And we had a lot
So you
of,
didn't know your North Star.
Yeah, we had a lot, which was the name of our first company, was North Star. We had a lot of stuff rolling around in our company. It was there, but it just wasn't defined for the new people. The people that have been there for 15 years were getting it as they were going from us or other leaders in the company. But as a new person coming in, they didn't know what our mission, our vision, or our core values were. So we define those. We call it our compass. Ironically, the North Star. That's what we call all 3 of those statements. So we got that rolled out, and we hold accountability to that as well. There's behaviors that we've lined out under the core values, and really hold people to that standard of behavior for each of those core values as well. If it's all written down about how they should behave, how we should treat each other, how we should treat the customer, then it's really easy to hold accountability at that point. You just refer back to what was already written and they agreed to and signed off on and, pledged allegiance to, or whatever, which way you want to say it. It makes it really easy at that point. You just pull that out and say, here it is. Right here.
In family businesses, frequently there's people that their name's on the side of the wall and they're working the business every day. And quite honestly, when it comes to accountability, they don't want to be accountable. Right. My name is Smith and our name's on the side of the wall and I'm going to get paid X amount of dollars and I have equity in the company. I'm not going to be held the same standards as everybody else is. And so you run into this quite a bit. And it's interesting as you've talked about this, you haven't talked about really any challenges that you've got from anybody who's got the last name Chabot around wanting to be accountable and wanting to be treated in a way that was consistent with everybody else that wasn't a family member of the company, which is the most important thing to get right. How'd you deal with that? Because that is really impactful.
I think it comes from communication and having that deep relationship and leaning into that. Like, we know what we expect and what we're trying to do as an organization. We can't compromise that by poor behavior, right? If we jeopardize what we're trying to accomplish by our own actions, then we're just counterproductive to what we're actually trying to do as an organization. But I point back to the same things that I just point everyone to. What did we agree to? What was the decisions we made as an organization? How are we going to behave based off of our core values? If you have those defined, I wish we had them, for 20 years. But now we have them, and it makes life a lot easier because we can just say, this is outside of what we've agreed on. We made a decision. You were part of that decision, and you're outside of that decision that we made. You're outside of the behaviors we agreed on that we were going to have as an organization. And it's not just everyone without a Chabot name. It's behaviors I have to exhibit And we have to be an example to the entire organization as we move about the company, travel throughout the country, go to meetings. We have to be exhibiting all those behaviors if we want the rest of the organization to also have those behaviors and those core values that we've set out.
Awesome.
Got to be a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
example.
I agree.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Have you, or maybe, with your tenure at the company, has a family member ever had to been let go from their role in the company? Because one of the things when I work with my family companies, I say, like, look, ownership does not imply employment, nor does it imply leadership. Those should be separate things. But curious to see how in your family culture and in the company you've handled.
I would describe it as many have been removed from
Wow.
the company. Throughout my, 20 years that
Yeah.
I've been here, there's probably been 5 or
Wow.
6 that have been removed from the company. Like I said, we got to hold that standard regardless of who
That's
you are
awesome.
here.
That's really hard to do. And the fact that you guys can do that and do it repeatedly says a lot about, I think, your conviction about where
Yeah,
you're going as
I
an
agree.
organization and how we operate together, and either on the bus or off the bus, right? I mean, I think it's pretty clear. And I agree with you on the
Yeah.
core values, like having really clear core values and what they really mean and how you use them. They get rid of a lot of the gray and they just make it clear, like, you're with us, you're not with us. And if you're not, I still love you, but you know what? Maybe you gotta go do something else.
Yeah. And were those
Oh,
times
yeah.
tough? Absolutely. Did it strain the personal relationship? Absolutely. Have we bounced back for the most part on every one of those? Yeah, we've also bounced back as
Wow.
well.
That's awesome.
So
How many family members are employed at RSC?
I think it's between 12 and
Wow.
15 right now. I meant to have that written down recently, but I think it's probably closer
Wow.
to 15 now.
How many shareholders?
There's 4 owners. Yep.
Are there 4 on the board, or do you have some non-owner board members?
Me and my brother are also are members of the board. He's the COO.
What was your original goal when you took over as a CEO? And has it changed at all since you've taken over in the last, 16, 17 months, whatever it's been?
I don't think the goal has changed, but I do think the strategy's changed. What got us here may not get us to where we want to go. The original goal was to continue on the growth and the culture. We needed a little bit of upgrade on that and definition of that, but continue that caring culture that we had, that family-oriented business, which was difficult as we expanded farther outside of our reach in Michigan, those touch points with all those employees in 19 states and have that personal type relationship. Video calls and stuff do help, but nothing beats an in-person handshake and sharing a meal with someone or something like that. So our company has had pretty rapid growth throughout its history. Couple down years, but for the most part, we've grown 15 to 20% year over year. The only year that I was here that we had a down year was 2021 after COVID. Not everything didn't bounce back as fast as we needed it to. And that was really our only down year. And then after that, just continue to go between that 15 and 20% growth.
Nice.
So
Congratulations.
I obviously wanted to continue that on, right? As I analyzed the company, I really had to think, okay, we're at 500 employees now, doing growth projections and looking out 5 years, which was difficult for me to do. I was usually looking in the past and seeing what happened last month or last quarter. And now I'm trying to look at what's going to happen the next month or the next year or the next 5 years, next 10 years, and really starting to create plans and budgets and everything for that going forward, which was a shift from what I had done for 20 years, which was always reacting to data that was coming in.
Yes.
So once I looked at kind of where we were going, I said, I think we need a different structure and some different things in place if we're going to get to that point. That kind of gunslinger, run and gun mentality that had gotten us here, I don't think was going to get us to where we needed to go, which was a more professional, a more structured organization. So that was a lot of what I've worked on probably over the last year from now, after we kind of slowed down after the first summer. really started to focus on training programs, making sure we can duplicate leaders and train faster and better on positions, better metrics and data to really hone in on our key performance indicators and having dashboards. Some of that stuff I learned at that CEO
Awesome.
roundtable that I went to with
Cool.
John. The cultural definitions was a big project that we had to work on, and really just getting our processes in line and making sure they were defined and everyone had them and that they were clear and they were
Mm.
right and that hadn't changed organically. And the most recent thing we've been working on is what is the process to change the process? And how do we track that? How do we check that? How do we notify everyone of that change? So we're launching that in next week. Will be that communication to the company about how we're going to announce those things and where they're saved, what types of training, who needs to approve it, and how we're going to roll those things out as an organization.
That's awesome. So can I ask you a question? Like, did you put somebody in charge of that? Like, some of my experience with that is having somebody in role, what I would consider like almost like director of performance improvement, and kind of what their job is working in conjunction with me or as a CEO or as a president. And then across all of our lines of business is really figuring out, like working with the business owners, really understanding like, all right, where are we inefficient? Where could we have standard process? How does this impact the customer? How do we enable this with technology? All that. Are you running it through an individual that has responsibility for that? Or how are you doing that? I think it's an important, really important kind of evolution where you go in organizationally, but how did you get to that? Who does it? How do you manage it?
We had a couple people working on different projects. I wouldn't say there was one individual that was, other than myself, that was piggybacking all of that stuff
Okay.
together. But I would say someone was quarterbacking each one of those different initiatives, or we started and completed and they switched to a different one that we had to go through. I would say I was mostly directing and managing those
Okay.
projects.
That's cool. So you're really creating what I would consider your franchise model, right? So how do we execute consistently, location by
Yeah.
location, role by
Consistency's
role? Yeah.
huge for
So
me.
that's really what you're creating is, here's where we buy here's where we put our store, here's where we buy our products from, right? Here's how many cars you have to go buy through a day. You're really taking that approach and putting it into your business to figure out how do we
Yeah.
scale
Yeah.
the process and consistency.
Exactly. Consistency is one of our
Yeah.
core values too. It's not what's done occasionally, it's what's done consistently that will get you
Yeah,
to
for
the
sure.
goal
I love
that
that.
you want
Yeah,
to.
it's so important.
A lot of the things you're talking about, exactly what John and I work with our clients on. Some of these things you saw at the CEO roundtable you attended. One of the big pain points we see, and actually a major indicator of success when we're working with our clients, is the speed at which they're able to adopt the idea, as you'd have, of setting those expectations around not only culture but performance, right? And each person's role, holding people accountable. And we use a system of scorecards versus a job description. So that way, like you said, you've got it written down, right? You signed up for it, which is all great. Do you feel like through that work, and it sounds like you're either there or you're moving there, that you've got a culture in place and a process that can attract and retain A players? Have you got that yet? Or do you think you're working towards that? Talk a little bit about that.
I would say, although it's definitely in the plan for the future, I haven't had to go outside of our current leadership team to pull some people in.
Good.
There is one position that we're going to be filling soon that we're interviewing for, an area director, that will kind of be a less organic hire. We know of this person, but we definitely attracted him. He reached out to us with a kind of a vision and a proposal of what he thought he could bring to RSC
That's
from
awesome.
knowing us. There was a moment that we reached out to him and said, "Hey, this thing's going on. We want you to know about it." We're saying no because it was kind of crossing between our relationship with him and a different customer. He said, "That was the moment I knew I wanted to work for you guys and not for my current company." And he said, just the integrity you guys had, you could have easily taken that customer and done that. It probably would have been fine, but you said, "No, I value my relationship with this other individual and I'm not going to jeopardize that relationship." And he really saw the integrity of what and how we operate our business and said, "I want to go work for those guys." So I would say that's some of the culture that we've been able to forecast out into the world that people know us for is we're not the type of company that goes and steals everyone's employees and goes in and raises the rates by $10 an hour and goes and steals all the technicians in an area. That's just not our MO as an organization. People come for our culture, our values, and I think our involvement too. I think we have a very unique involvement, even from my level, where people, if they have a problem, they feel comfortable reaching out to me as the CEO and communicating something that they're not happy with. And it's not like I get those calls every day, but if someone's really frustrated, they're calling one of the owners, they're calling myself. We're getting the information we need to hear about a problem. And I don't think that's normal in an organization. I think it does happen, but I go out, I see technicians, they know me, they know my face. It's not like I'm some untouchable person in an ivory tower that they never know or talk to, or I'm never on a meeting. I'm just someone on high directing them all the time. I'm involved at a deeper level than other organizations.
Is that because you kind of grew up in the business, so you really learned it from kind of ground floor all the way to the CEO suite and get to establish relationships and build trust with all the people in the business?
There's obviously those closer relationships with people that I've known for a long time. It's that family touch that we've always wanted to keep. Before, you'd walk into our office, there was 15 people and you saw the CEO and the owners, and we were half of the employees at the time.
Yeah.
So now we have almost 150 people in our office, but I'm walking around, I'm interacting with people. I fixed an IT issue this morning that no one else could figure out that was stopping people from working. That's the interaction that I'm going to have. I'm not just going to say, oh, I heard about this problem. It's like 40 people aren't working right now because there's an IT issue. We need to figure this out pretty quickly. So activated and pulled all the levers I could to get it done as fast as possible. So I don't think everyone's involved at that level all the time.
Yeah.
And I like
leading
to be
from the
because,
tower. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to be because they're the people that are actually getting the work done. And if they feel supported and they feel that I'm involved with them and they can reach out to me if there's a major problem, they're probably going to do their job better and more efficiently and be more excited about it because they know the CEO's got their back personally.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah. Phil, it sounds like you're being a great steward of the family legacy as you're leading here. It sounds like you've learned a lot and continue to learn. What's on the horizon? What's your vision for your tenure as a CEO of RSC?
There's definitely some growth projections that we want to hit over the next 5 to 10 years. So we're working towards those goals. I would say consistency is one thing that we're really trying to work on. Very predictable outcomes from our service calls and our construction projects, and really have it kind of goes into the process, right? If we're following the process, we should know the outcome based on that process and what job we're doing. So we're really trying to analyze and score those individual service calls to really understand those predictable outcomes. Yep. So some of that comes from the scorecarding and measuring certain things, but really getting down to the individual service call process is something we're really focusing on right now, because that's where we make our money. We're a 90+% service company, which is different in our industry as well. A lot of people do a lot more construction than we do, but we're 90% service. We do 70, I think we'll be around 75,000 service calls this year. So those service calls matter a lot. That's where we make our money. It's not a $1 million project. It's $1,000, a time per invoice that we're making that money. That multiplication, if we're doing it incorrectly, has a major impact on the revenue and the profitability of our company. That's probably the near future goals that we're working on.
Good stuff. So Phil, you mentioned a little bit earlier that, the organization has grown at a 15 to 20% rate, except for a couple of years. There's some abnormalities. Glen and I work with lots of different businesses, get to meet a lot of CEOs. And I don't know that I see that over the span of time you're talking about. I may see that for a couple of years or 3 years, but I don't see that for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So what are the strategies that you think organizationally that you've put in place that are really helping? And some of this is obviously before you were CEO, but like, what are some of those things that you think are leading to that really consistent growth?
I think we have a really good reputation. Even a lot of our sales that we get are organic, or people hear about us and they're reaching out to us for them to help them. We help a lot of supermarket customers that are in turmoil. They say, "Hey, we can't find someone to service 100 locations." And we can handle that. And we're not afraid to tackle that issue. We have really good data. If you were one of our customers and said, how much revenue did we have, or how much expense did we have on site 1, 2, 3, 4? We could, couple clicks, I could have that in front of you, and we can have a conversation about that in the moment. So there's some things like that that really have helped us. Our data, even prior to what we have today, even in the more manual process, our data has been superior even to what our customers have had. And we're able to leverage that data to manage contracts better. We're able to manage the relationship with the customer and talk about real hard facts, where sometimes we're just dealing with feelings about a situation. Maybe a really bad situation happened, bad service call, but we can prove out of the data that, hey, that's 1 out of 5,000 service calls. It's a very low percentage of what our actual performance is, but people can get up on their game about that one issue that really bothered them, but it doesn't mean we should fire
Right.
RSC. It's a mere blip in the larger universe of what we've been able to accomplish for them. So data has been a very big driver, not only for our customers, but managing our own finances as well. We can get very granular on data. It's very quick. We have a lot of different dashboards that we're able to access that data in Power BI. And we can pretty much pull every data point out of our system and flip it around and see it by state, see it by division, see it by region. We can get by customer. We can really dive into it many different ways to articulate the problem better.
So data, it kind of sounds like data is actually one of your strategic differentiators.
Yeah,
And
I would say so.
and really the use of data to understand what's happening in the market and what are trends. So how long ago did you guys figure that out, that you were going to use data to become your strategic differentiation as an organization?
Probably
Wow.
2006 is where I would say
Okay.
that's as far back about
Yeah.
as I go, where I
Yeah.
can remember at least. I was a shop sweeper before that. And a lot of it was manual
Right.
before. We were keeping
Yeah.
massive spreadsheets of manually entered data that we were gathering. A lot of the similar data we can get automatically now. So we've always taken the approach of having good data to be able to manage our business better. We've always had crazy spreadsheets. As far back as I can remember, we were making crazy spreadsheets that we were operating our business off of, and still do. You always got to create
Right.
something
Yeah.
on the fly.
Well, it's important to have the visibility into the business. It sounds like you've mastered that. Phil, we're going to be wrapping up here in a little bit, but I want to ask you, give you the opportunity. Are there any questions that John and I haven't asked that you wish we did, or is there anything that you had wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
I don't know if there was any questions that maybe I could think about that you guys could have asked, but I think, like, if I were to ever give some advice to a new CEO, I think I would talk about consistency with them. There's just such power in the consistency. And sometimes that can feel like the loop, right? That thing that you're hitting every day
Yeah.
can feel like you're never going to get there, but you will if you're consistent.
Good.
In
I love
writing
it.
down your plans. I mean,
Okay.
writing down
Yeah.
the plans that you need, the problems that you have, and articulating that problem can really, really help. I know it seems so simple to a lot of people, but even writing it on a notepad and starting to cross things off and being
Yeah.
consistent on that list. I have a whiteboard over here that we just erased and rewrote a bunch of new goals and new things that we needed to accomplish. And we just keep knocking those things off the list, but you can get caught up in the day to day and the new issue that's come up in HR or IT or operations or a new sales thing. So, keeping that plan and those budgets and all that stuff in the forefront and having a good way to measure it, you're going to be super successful if you can do that. you're taking care of those issues. You're pushing the company forward if you articulate those things and can continue to push the ball forward.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I was going to say that's kind of our closing question is what are the 3 things that you would ask other CEOs? So you did it without us asking.
I know. That was great.
It's interesting though. I would tell you that Glenn
Love it.
and I both espouse the consistency thing. It is the foundation of everything. And it's funny. We use a methodology called metronomics, and really what metronomics is about is systems or processes, discipline, consistency. Sometimes it's not always sexy, right? And I think what happens is people get, and I was guilty of this as CEO too, and and being consistent is something I've grown to appreciate as gotten older. But there's a lot of CEOs that they're just chasing their tail all the time, and what they're good at is being inconsistent. And I think that what you're talking about is so powerful. It's not sexy every day, but like that rigor, that discipline, that structure, that's what sets you free. And that's how you grow a business that performs well over time, is the ability to do that and have people that want to show up and be consistent working within that framework too.
Yeah. So I only gave 2. I'll give a third.
Please.
And that's, you got to have something outside of work. You got to have another passion. You got to be doing something else. For me, over the past couple of years, that's been working out. I just ran my first half marathon the other day.
Congrats.
On my road to a full marathon, going through consistency. 8 months ago, I had never ran more than 2 miles in my life. And then now I'm on my way to a full marathon. That came with consistency and training. And that really helped me with staying on track in the business as well. Hey, if I set out a plan and I train, hey, guess I'm running 1 mile, I'm running 5 miles, I'm running 8 miles, I'm running 10 miles. Now I can run 13. It's like the training and the progress gets me to my goal. That goal was to run the half marathon this year. And I did it through consistency. Didn't run 2 times and got to 13.
Yeah.
I ran a lot more than that to get there.
Yeah.
So, but having that hobby outside of work, I think is really important, because we can work 24 hours a day, right? We can go to bed and wake up and read our emails and look at our chat messages and just continue that cycle. You got to travel, you got to do something, you got to have some other passion than just the job here. I think it teaches you other things as you go through those hobbies or activities.
Got to unplug. I agree.
I would say so. Yeah, those are all really solid, Phil. I agree. So yeah, having the consistency. So our system is called metronomics, and it's basically named after the metronome. And it really says that the leadership, right, that sets the pace of the company, and having that cadence of the communication, writing things down, having a plan and writing it down. I meet so many people in leadership and CEOs that and I ask them a question, are you and your leadership team, are you in the company, are you all on the same page? And they're like, yeah, sure. And like, oh, well, do you have a page? And so many don't, but the clients we work with, we have a 1-page strategic plan that everybody in the company should have visibility to see, oh, there's the North Star, and way over here is like, here's how I contribute to that, and they can see that path.
I think it helps with individual decisions too when you have that strategic plan. Because when you're making a decision, and even with core values too, like, is it aligned with where we're trying to go as an organization, or how we're trying to behave as an organization? Even on a lower level, a biller, is this decision I'm going to make aligned with the goals of RSC? They can test it against that if you have it down. So I think it's been super important. And that comes into communication and making sure that everyone knows where the company's going and why we're going there. The why is very important that I've learned over the last couple months. People want to know why, and they'll go to town for you. So
it's a different time. I mean, if you think about it, like growing up in in family businesses, there wasn't a lot of why 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's like, just do this because I said so. And we're at a time now that, the people that are working side by side with us in these companies, they want to invest and be a part of an organization that's got a clear direction where they're going. And their CEO can get out in front and talk about where they're going, why they're going there, and get people excited about the direction of the company. I think it's super essential today. And there's not a ton of CEOs that I think that are great at setting that direction, constantly talking about that direction, right? There's consistency in how they talk about that. I think that's essential too. And I think you're exactly right, Phil. That why stuff and communicating, that's so important.
It's kind of that metronome thing, right? The metronome just doesn't hit one side one time. You don't just release your core values and your mission and your vision one time. You got to keep talking about it. You got to keep living it. If you write it once and throw it in the drawer, it's not going to be effective.
That's right.
Yeah. I always tell like my CEOs, they're like, well, when do I know I've said it enough? And I said, when it echoes back at you from the people in your company at all levels, and it's actually right. They're on, and that's when you know you're on the same page. When you said we could go ask the biller, like, what are your core values at RSC? And if they can tell us that, it's like, yeah, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
We are not perfect at RSC. We have our problems, but I think we're headed in a really good direction. And we have when we're not perfect, we have good plans to get it back on track. So
Good stuff.
Yeah. One last thing. So John and I saw Jim Collins a couple weeks ago at a workshop in Chicago where there were some of our clients. And one of the things he talked about this level 5 leadership, which he says is the highest level of leadership. And he said there's really 2 essential qualities. One is humility and one is will. So I think even with that statement, what you just said, you demonstrated that. So congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right, John, take us home.
All right. Well, Phil, thanks for sharing where you're at today
Yeah.
in your journey as a CEO of a family business, been around for a long time. Somebody's not figured it all out, but working to figure it out. And I just think that it's been a really great conversation and excited about the future for where you're going with RSC and your vision and how you're getting team aligned to that. So thank you for that. And to our listeners, as Phil's story resonated, you're feeling stuck, flat, or ready for something more, reach out to me or Glen and explore what coaching could look like for you so you can get your organization trending in the right direction, similar to what Phil's doing. Thank you.